Hey everyone, I'm going to give a brief introduction to Maya nCloth, which is a tool used to create simulated fabric. So to show what's going on here, I do have some nCloth applied to this plane, and when I hit play, you'll notice the plane can actually fall onto this cube. One other thing to note about nCloth, you can't actually scrub back in the timeline, you can only move forward. So notice when I return back to frame 1, it resets, and if I start going forward, it starts falling, but if I try to go backwards in the time slider, it actually doesn't work. It's only going to work going forward. All right, so how did I go about creating this? I'm going to go ahead and delete all these nodes and then start from scratch. To begin, I'm going to go ahead and create a cube, and I'm going to create a plane. I'll translate the plane up a little bit and scale it just a little bit larger than the cube. To apply nCloth to this plane, I'm going to go ahead and select the plane, come up to the top left, make sure you do have this menu set to effects, and then click nCloth and click create nCloth, and I'll just hit play. Notice right away how the plane just starts falling down into the abyss. This is because we've yet to tell it that you want this cube to collide into it. I'm going to return to frame 1. I'm going to select the cube, come up here to nCloth, and click Create Passive Collider. Going to go ahead and hit play, and now the plane starts reacting into the cube. If I want to change the position or scale of the plane, I do need to return back to frame 1. So I'll scale it up a little bit larger and hit play. Now you may be noticing some of these wrinkles are actually pretty large, and it's not really giving off a realistic look. That is because we need to give more subdivisions to this plane. Typically on a default plane, when you come over here to the inputs, you'd have this little drop down and you'd be able to change the subdivisions. Instead of getting it through here, you actually have to open up the attribute editor, and we are looking for the polyplane tab right here. And these are the two similar attributes like before. From here, I'm going to just change these both to 50 and 50, and I'll just hit play again, just kind of see what happens. So now I am getting some of these smaller, more defined wrinkles. However, this thing is actually kind of almost bouncing and then just sliding off. So let's go ahead and fix that next. To adjust that, open up the attribute editor and click on nCloth in the outliner. And what I'm looking for, if I collapse these, I'm looking for the collisions tab. I'm going to open this up, and I'm just going to have this playing while I adjust these attributes. So near the bottom, I'm looking for friction and stickiness. As the names imply, friction has to do with how much friction is with the fabric, and stickiness has to do with how sticky the fabric is. So I can try setting these both to something like 0.5 and 0.5. And now you'll notice as it collides into it, it starts to actually stick to it in a way. So it no longer slides off. Now there is some stretching going on. You'll kind of notice in the corners. That has to do with the dynamic properties of the fabric. So if I come to this dynamic properties dropdown, you'll notice a handful of attributes that has to do with stretch, compression, bend, and shear. By default, the stretch is set to 20. If I lower this to something like 5, notice how it starts stretching super far. And if I increase this to, let's say, 100, now it doesn't stretch at all. There's also bend resistance. If I set this to something high, like 50, notice when it actually falls, it actually doesn't bend as much. Whereas if I lower it back to 0, now it starts bending completely around the geometry. From here, it kind of has to do with how you just sort of drop this cloth. So I could choose to rotate this like so and hit play, and notice how it starts kind of collapsing on itself. Kind of the way you would anticipate fabric to react. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the outliner and see how this is being driven. You'll notice there are 3 new nodes in the outliner. The first one is the nucleus. This has to do with gravity and a handful of other attributes that are sort of like a global thing to everything that is nCloth related in your scene. This nCloth node. This is going to get created every time you create a new nCloth shape. So notice if I decide to create another plane, I'll scale this up, going to come up here to nCloth, create nCloth, and now there is a brand new nCloth node that is created. Just going to go ahead and delete that. And the third one is nRigid. This has to do with your passive collider object. So because I created this cube and assigned passive collider, this nRigid node got made. If I decide to make another geometry, kind of like a ground plane, and come up here to nCloth, create passive collider, you'll notice a new nRigid node gets made. And I can hit play, and now this plane is reacting to both the cube and this other plane. So each one of these nodes has their own series of attributes. If I click this nucleus, let me go ahead and hit play. At the top, you'll notice gravity and wind. So the reason why the plane is falling is because we have some gravity and we have a gravity direction. If I choose to add a number in one of these other ways, notice how now the gravity is moving in the x direction. If I increase this number even more so, it starts increasing the intensity of that. Set this back to 0, return back to frame 1, hit play. I can also introduce some wind. So if I add wind speed and wind direction, you'll notice a little bit of wind blowing, and I can increase this number to start getting a little bit more wind. So from here, it's just a matter of playing around with these attributes and playing around with how you position this plane as you drop it. Most of these attribute names are pretty straightforward, and you can always select the plane, come up here to presets, and there's a handful of different presets that you can try out. So if I come to this silk, change this and click replace all selected, I'll just hit play and we'll just kind of get a sense of how this looks. When it comes to trying to quickly hang certain things of fabric, let's say you're just trying to hang a towel or something on a wall, you can quickly grab a single vertice or grab a number of vertices, come up here to end constraint and click transform constraint. So now I'll just hit play and you'll notice just like that, now it's actually sticking to that position. And since it still has some passive colliders with other objects, it's still running into those things. I'm going to go ahead and extend this time slider just a little bit more. Once you find a frame that you like, if you're using this for something like modeling, you can quickly just hit Shift D onto that plane. And now that piece no longer has any history to it. If I return back to frame 1, you'll notice it is now completely static. This can also allow you to quickly make variations of things. I can just kind of move this cube around, hit play one more time. And now using the same exact setup, if I hit Shift D, can translate over here. Notice I now have 2 different variations from the same exact setup, all in just a matter of seconds. All right, enjoy.